Hello everybody, hello! My name is Lara. This is the show with the Lego Storytime where I tell you all about a thing that I learned this week. And this week, I've had a lot of requests to do a thing about Poppy Day. So we'll do a show about Poppy Day. I've been drawing a poppy on the board. I thought about, because usually we do an activity, I thought about like leading you through a how to draw a poppy video, and then I thought no one needs a science teacher to like rehash an artist's video on YouTube. But this is the video that I used if you want to watch it too. It's really good. How to draw a poppy real easy by Draw Stuff Real Easy. It's not too bad, is it? So there, we just listen to me tell you about poppies. And then if you want to, if you're feeling inspired at the end, then you can go away and try and draw one. Okay, so obviously there's a lot of information that we could talk about. I thought the angle we'd choose for Poppy Day is why poppies? Why do we wear poppies around the November time? So the quick answer is that November the 11th, so the 11th day of the 11th month at 11 o'clock in 1918, the First World War officially came to an end, okay? The peace treaty was signed. So, and we associate poppies with World War I because of a poem that somebody wrote, all right? So if you're watching this live, then tomorrow is the 11th of November. So that is what we call Armistice Day, sort of peace, finding peace day, or Remembrance Day. And that's the day where we wear poppies to remember the First World War, how horrific it was, the people who lost their lives. Remembrance Sunday is the second Sunday in November, so they're usually very close together, and that was introduced to remember sort of people who've died or suffered loss from all wars, and remember people who've fought in all wars. But we'll focus on World War I for this, okay? So yeah, this poem that inspired everyone to relate poppies to World War I. It was written by someone called John McCrae. Here's a picture of him. We think about soldiers as just being soldiers, don't we? But no, obviously they are people first and foremost. So John McCrae was a Canadian doctor and a writer. Here he is. But yes, Canada was part of the British Empire. So when Britain started fighting in World War I, for reasons that we'll go into, he was a medical officer and he was treating people in the trenches in World War I in 1914. When his friend died, this is his friend, Alexis Helmer, who was 22, died. And at his funeral, it is said, McCrae noticed how quickly poppies grew among the graves of the dead soldiers and was inspired to write a poem. So here is the poem. This is it in McCrae's actual handwriting. We should read it, shouldn't we, before we do anything else? So the poem is famously became known as In Flanders Fields. In Flanders fields the poppies blow between the crosses row on row that mark our place, and in the sky the larks, still bravely singing, fly scarce heard amid the guns below. We are the dead. Short days ago we lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders fields. Take up our quarrel with the foe. To you from failing hands we throw the torch. Be yours to hold it high. If ye break with us who die, we shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders fields. So particularly this last line really just had an enormous impact on people. This idea that if you don't remember and you don't hold the faith, then you know the soldiers will have died for nothing. Sadly, well, this is a kind of a separate lesson in not giving up, okay? He sent the poem to the Spectator magazine, which is in London. It's still the world's longest running magazine, and they rejected it. But he also sent it to Punch magazine, and they published it December the 8th, 1915. Sadly, McCrae did not survive the war. If you've been doing our homework lessons, he died of pneumonia and meningitis, which you now know a bit about. It's weird how stuff links together. Some comfort is found in the fact that he was famous while he was alive. So he did live to know what an impact his poem had on people and how successful it had been. So the quick version of why we wear poppies in November is because it's to remember the people who lost their lives in the First World War, and the poppy was sort of made famous by McCrae's beautiful poem. But I had lots of questions, right? Like, why poppies? Why were poppies growing in Flanders fields? Why wasn't it sunflowers or forget-me-nots? Also, like, why were they in Flanders fields? Like, I sort of know that World War I was Germany and Britain fighting. So why were they in France? Why did they dig trenches and fight each other in France? Did they like arrange to meet up there, like a football match? I don't know. So these are the questions that I've looked into. First of all, let's look at why poppies, because this is actually really gorgeous. So if you ever walked across like a piece of grass in winter, it gets really muddy really quickly, yeah? It gets all churned up, like football fields in winter, they're a disaster. So World War I in France, for reasons which we'll go into, there are horses, there are humans running around, it's a time of amazing technological advancement, so there's loads of new bombs going off and terrible things exploding, completely destroying the ground. A pilot who flew over at the time said it looked like a strip of murdered nature. Here's a little picture of the no man's land, yeah? So the Germans dug trenches, Britain dug trenches, and the soldiers would just sit in these trenches, and this is what the ground... It's black and white, but you can see it looks absolutely horrific. Now, I didn't know this. Most seeds germinate, like start to sprout in darkness. You might have done this, you put a sunflower seed, cover it up with like black plastic or something, and it germinates. Poppy seeds are not like this. Poppy seeds need light to grow. So they tend to germinate when soil has been disturbed. Like I say, they grow a lot in fields because farmers ploughing the fields brings the poppy seeds to the top and they get sunlight so they can grow. So poppies were like the only thing delighted by this horrific situation because suddenly all the grass was dead, even the trees had been exploded, the bushes were gone, they had no competition. And it was particularly that 2019, like 15 summer was particularly warm and they've got all this sunlight, no competition, and yeah, the fields just become absolutely full of poppies. Other facts I just learned about the poppy, they've got loads of seeds, obviously, very, very small, loads of seeds. They produce absolutely loads of pollen. It doesn't travel by the wind. Insects pollinate them, so it's not bad for you. It doesn't go up your nose and give you asthma or anything. But they produce loads of pollen and hardly any nectar. But yeah, we think, don't we, now probably of poppies as being sort of quite sad, like they might make us feel quite emotional. At the time, for the soldiers, they found them really inspiring and uplifting. I found this absolutely gorgeous photo because the poem made poppies famous, but actually soldiers were appreciating how beautiful the poppies were even if they weren't published poets like Macrae was, and they would often pick them and press them and send them home in letters. So I'm on this website we hear of Hancock's. Hancock's, very famous jewellers in London, they make the Victoria Cross, if you've heard of that, every year, like family run business since the Victorian times. They have got in their collection a poppy that a soldier pressed that has survived, that he sent home in a letter. Look at this. Thank you, Hancock's website. 100 years old, this poppy, actually from Flanders fields. Isn't that just amazing? Stunning. But yes, the poem in Flanders fields made it famous. So my next big question, which I was so excited to learn because I love linking stuff up and this has annoyed me for ages, why are they in Flanders fields? What even are Flanders fields? So to answer that, we need to talk a little bit about how the First World War started. How the First World War started is quite complicated. There were lots of different political situations going on, but it all sort of came to a head with the death of somebody called Franz Ferdinand. Franz Ferdinand was a duke who was about to inherit what we call the Austro-Hungarian Empire. It doesn't exist anymore, but here's a map to help us. So here's Franz Ferdinand, okay? He's driving around in a car. He is about to inherit the Austro-Hungarian Empire, which is here. Can you see this red bit down here? It says Austria-Hungary. Franz Ferdinand is shot by this chap, Gavrilo Princip, I think you pronounce his name. It's a Serbian student and he's living in Bosnia, which is green. These colours are important. So there's a lot of political unrest between Austro-Hungary and Serbia and Bosnia, and this kind of kicks it all off. So basically, the Austro-Hungarian Empire want to invade Serbia, but Serbia have got friends. Serbia have got the prison of Russia. So Austro-Hungary, which I can't wait to stop saying, they ask Germany for support, and Germany says yes. So basically, all the countries in red are the countries working with Austro-Hungary, who Franz Ferdinand was going to be in charge of, but now he's dead. And the green ones are the countries that are supporting Serbia. So yeah, Russia and France and Britain and Italy and all the places that you see in green all sort of got together to try and stop this happening, right? It's a choice. The First World War is a choice that people make. So why France? Why did Germany and Britain end up fighting in France? I have found out about something called the Schleifen Plan. I hope I'm saying that right. It sounds very German. The Schleifen Plan was a plan came up with by someone called Schleifen in Germany, because, well, it was just in case Germany ever got attacked from both sides, okay? So I live in the UK. We're kind of smug about the fact that we're an island, right? So a long time ago, if anyone wanted to invade us, they had to come on a boat and it was difficult. Germany are obviously in quite a vulnerable position. They've got Russia, they've got France right next to them. So the Schleifen Plan was what we do if we ever get attacked from both sides. And the plan was that they knew that Russia would take a long time to get their troops organised, like maybe 5 or 6 weeks. It would take Russia to get going if they wanted to invade. So the plan was they would go into France through Belgium, because that's kind of the weakest way to get in, take over Paris really quickly because the French army weren't very good, and then as soon as they'd conquered France, they'd be back in time to conquer Russia before they really got going. This was the plan. Here is a little simple diagram of the plan. Thank you, Wikipedia. So yeah, this is Germany. Belgium is neutral, right? That means they're sort of not interested either way, they're not involved. Germany are going to march through Belgium, take over France, okay? So that's to the west of Germany, and then they're going to go off and conquer Russia. It did not work like that. So Germany are obviously at the start of First World War in a position where Russia and France are, you know, coming at them from both sides. So it didn't work for a few reasons. The plan would have been good if all their assumptions had been correct, but they were not correct. First of all, Russia got going a lot faster than they thought. It didn't take 5 or 6 weeks. It took, I think, maybe like 1 week. Also, Belgium, it turns out, weren't as neutral as they thought. So when Germany started marching through Belgium to conquer France, Belgium started fighting back. Also, Britain had an agreement with Belgium that they would protect them. So as soon as Germany entered Belgium, Britain got involved and came over and started fighting them as well. And basically, Germany got stuck in France, in a place called Flanders. Right? I'll show you a picture of Flanders now. So all the coloured bits are Belgium, okay, supposedly neutral. This is the Netherlands, which borders it. So this is Ypres. It's spelt Y-P-R-E-S, but in English we say Ypres. So the Germans get through neutral Belgium to sort of around the Ypres area, and then they get stuck because Britain meets them and starts fighting them back. And these areas around Ypres are called West Flanders and East Flanders. They're sort of counties, right? Just, you kind of like Yorkshire or Lancashire or whatever. But look, can you see that France is just tucked down here under Ypres? So this is the Flanders in Belgium, but there's also a bit of Flanders in France, which is called French Flanders, which is why it's confusing, because when we talk about Flanders, you might be talking about Belgium or France. So Flanders fields it wasn't like a specific place. It was just fields that were in Flanders. Like you'd say, like Yorkshire fields or whatever. Whew, okay, so that was a lot of information that I didn't know, which is helping me to understand the First World War. So this bit of land where the German army sort of got stuck versus the British army, and they dug their trenches, it becomes the kind of famous part of the First World War that we think of. This is called the Western Front because it's on the west of Germany, right? The east would have been Russia, where they also had a terrible time. So there's this strip of land which is about 50 miles by about 20 miles, which is now, like, no one organised it, right? Like, the farmers who were farming there presumably just had to go, okay, back away slowly for 4 years. And I mustn't forget to tell you, farmers now near Ypres are still hitting like shells and explosives that hadn't exploded with their farm equipment. Apparently it's terrifying. Like, you buy a farm near Ypres at your own risk because they're uncovering rifles. Like, some of the trenches that they dug out, they just sort of got covered over and they're still there, so people literally just fall into enormous holes all over Belgium and France, in Flanders, like all the time. So anyway, this is the bit where we hear about things like the Battle of the Somme, okay? A lot of these famous, absolutely horrendous battles that you talked about. when you talk about the First World War. But the battle that I want to talk about is the Second Battle of Ypres. This is like where I'm not going to go into too much detail. This is where it gets kind of most disturbing, because a chemist had driven during the First World War in Flanders and noticed that trench warfare tended to turn into stalemate. So neither side tended to gain any ground. It's just soldiers sitting in wet trenches in hideous conditions, dying, and no one's winning or losing. So this chemist said to Germany, why don't we use tear gas to drive the British army out of their trenches? Now, tear gas is horrible. It sort of does what it says, but worse, okay? It irritates the tear ducts and makes you cry. It irritates the nose and the lungs. It causes temporary blindness. And it wasn't designed to cause permanent blindness, although sometimes it could have done. And it wasn't designed to kill people, although sometimes it did. So tear gas is really horrible gas, not designed to kill people. So this chemist went back and suggested this, and they tested it. And another scientist happened to be watching, this German chemist called Fritz Haber. Let's show you a photo of him. And he said, instead of using tear gas, why don't we use heavier than air chlorine gas as a weapon? And so they did. So I won't go into details, but heavier than air chlorine gas does absolutely horrendous things to people. Like thousands of people, about 3,000 people died almost immediately, because obviously the Germans waited until the wind was on their side, released this gas, and it would have been horrendous if they'd been expecting it, but obviously this is the first time that Germany used chemical weapons in battle. So the soldiers on the other side really didn't know what was happening. There's horrible descriptions of people just running in all directions. Apparently the Canadian soldiers who came across it later did know what it was, because it smelled a bit like their drinking water, which had chlorine in it. But anyway, that was the Second Battle of Ypres. The Second Battle of Ypres is famous for, among many horrendous things, for being the first time that this chemical weaponry was used by Germany. And that is the battle in which Alexis Helmer died, who was McCrae's friend. So it was at that battle, sort of just after that battle, that McCrae wrote his poem. Whew. Okay, so that's why poppies are not other kinds of flower, and that's why the World War I was in Flanders fields. If we want to know why we wear poppies, then we have to do story time. So let's do that. Here we go. Need my story time script. So why do we wear poppies? Well, a young American teacher often gets mentioned in the story of why we actually wear poppies. Miss Moyna Bell Michael had an idea for a Flanders Field memorial poppy in November 1918 and campaigned a lot for people to wear them. So she's one of the people responsible. But I think, having done my research, I think the person who has to take most of the credit is a French lecturer called Anna Guerin. Here she is. She was actually working in the UK in 1914 when war broke out, but she just agreed to go and work in America for 3 years. So she stuck to her plan. She went over to America and did some lecturing. But at the end of every lecture, she would secretly raise money for the Red Cross, ask for donations to help the people of France during the war. And then America joined the war, and she didn't have to keep it a secret anymore. And she campaigned extremely openly and raised a lot of money for women who'd lost their husbands during the First World War, and children who'd lost their parents, and also soldiers who'd had terrible injuries who couldn't work anymore. Apparently she was an absolutely fantastic public speaker. And after the war, she started organising poppy days in America. So widows and orphans back in France would make the poppies out of silk or cotton and so earn money for themselves, and then they'd be sold in America to raise funds for surviving soldiers and families. Here is an actual picture of Anna Guerin. It's a bit awkward because this is the picture of her that often gets shown, but she is actually dressed as Joan of Arc here. So she's from the olden times, but she's not quite from that olden times as it looks. Here's a picture of her looking as she probably would more have looked like at the time. The American Legion, like the British Legion, but in America, invited her to speak to them in 1920, and they gave her the nickname the Poppy Lady from France and agreed to support her Poppy Days. So America had the first nationwide Poppy Day, and it's a big nation, right? So here is one of the cotton poppies that Anna Grant had made and shipped over to America for their Poppy Day. And then she turned her attention to Canada, who loved the Poppy Day idea, but the job of making their poppies went to disabled Canadian soldiers, so their poppy looks a little bit different. Here it is, that's the Canadian one. And Britain and Australia and New Zealand all joined in 1921. The UK ordered 1 million of these fabric flowers, and they also made another 8 million themselves. And on the 6th of October, 1921, Field Marshal Earl Haig announced that he wished the 11th of November to be known as Remembrance Day, and then it would be Poppy Day. All 9 million poppies, by the way, sold out. The people who didn't get one had to improvise with different flowers. It was so successful that the British Legion started a factory. And then Lady Haig, who was Mr. Haig's wife, opened one in Edinburgh too, making poppies of a slightly different design. I thought that the Edinburgh Poppy Factory would be some sort of trendy coffee shop now, but no, it's not. It's still there. It's moved buildings, but you can go around for a tour. Disabled war veterans still make over 3 million poppies a year there. And they're all made by hand, although their website tells me that they've now got a machine to cut out the 3 million petal shapes. Lightweights. New Zealand wanted in on the action as well. New Zealand ordered 350,000 poppies from France, from Anna Grant, and 16,000 large poppies. Unfortunately, the ship carrying the poppies from France took so long to get there that by the time it arrived, they didn't have time to organise selling the poppies. Like, they didn't have time to advertise them and tell everyone about them. So what do you do? What do you do if you've ended up with 366,000 fake poppies? Well, you sell them on the next available Memorial Day. I love this fact that I just learned. So they did. And even now, 100 years later, while the rest of the world wears them in November, poppies in New Zealand are worn on Anzac Day in April, because that was the first available Memorial Day they had to sell the poppies on. So what about France, where all this started? What do they wear in France? Well, it turns out that French soldiers at this time generally wore red trousers, but more or less at the start of the First World War, they changed their uniform to blue. So the new, extremely young, some of them younger than 20, recruits for the First World War wore blue trousers and became known as Le Bleuet. So Les Bleuets, well, they had blue uniforms, and also cornflowers are obviously another flower that grows in fields when soil has been disturbed. So in France, they actually wear blue. Here's a picture of the soldiers wearing blue. It's been coloured. And here's a propaganda postcard of Le Bleuet. And here is Le Bleuet de France, which is the blue flower that you will see worn if you go over to France in November time. And here is a picture of a war amputee selling bleuets on the Champs-Élysées in 1919, which I think is a good reminder of the fact that it doesn't really matter what colour you wear as long as you remember them. The end. Right, you lot, that is the end of the Poppy show, I think. Yes, I've definitely told you everything that I've just learned about the First World War. Thank you so much for joining me. Like I say, there's a link on my Facebook page, which I'll go to now. If you scroll down a bit, I've posted a link to this YouTube video where if you want to, you can try and draw a poppy as good as mine. I'll also go on and see if you've written me any comments, because like I say, there is a Facebook post up saying if you want to ask me any questions or tell me what you're getting up to, then you can. So yes, if you're watching this live, then tomorrow is the 11th of November. So it's Armistice Day, also called Remembrance Day tomorrow. And the Sunday coming up is Remembrance Sunday, which is a more kind of general remembering everyone who has been affected by war. threw this at very last minute, so I don't think many people will have commented. Well, there's some comments. All right. You guys have been busy, what are you saying? Uh-oh. Oh, no. Oh, no. Janie couldn't find it. Janie's that because it was really late. Click the link below but can't find the live stream. Is there another link you could share? Chloe's here, that's good. Oh, and Tyne and Sailor are here. Hello, Tyne and Sailor. Hey, it's Shakila. Please mention the other coloured poppies too. White for peace, purple for animals killed in the war, and black for the black and ethnic minorities killed in the wars. Well, you just did, so well done. Hello, Suki and Arza and Eunice. Hello. And hello, oh, Chloe's here. And Charlotte's here. Hello. My poppy is amazing. Thanks, guys. Yeah, I'm pretty pleased with it, actually. I'm doing this show again on Monday, so I'm going to try and keep it on my whiteboard and not allow my children to destroy it before then. That was so nice. Oh, thank you, Chloe. Yeah, I really enjoyed this one. Oh, bye, Maya and Rose. Thank you so much for coming. Okay, you lot. Oops. That was my phone telling me that my battery's low. Yeah, thank you so much for coming, you lot. It was so interesting. That's just why I love this job, because there's so much there that I'd heard of, but I didn't know about. I'm so happy that I now know actually what Flanders fields were and why poppies grew in them. Yeah, I'll see you all very soon. Next week, probably. Thanks for